as we are talking about reshoring production, reshoring manufacturing, bringing some of these supply chains back to the United States. Expanding shipbuilding has impacts far beyond just our shipyards. It also impacts a number of other tangential industries as well. Now, getting back to competing with capacity, we don't necessarily need to be on a one-for-one basis with China. China has expansive shipbuilding capacity, but let's bear in mind that we still make a more capable, a more advanced ship. So we don't need to necessarily be on that one-for-one basis with China. However, we do need a certain number of ships in our fleet to be able to counter a larger maritime force coming from the Chinese if such a conflict were to occur. And so this type of shipbuilding program that we've discussed here in this slide is absolutely imperative. I want to mention two other things very quickly, because as Stas and I were discussing this presentation last week, there were two things that came up which he felt would be valuable for folks that are listening today. The first is the potential for something that would be called the SHIPS Act. Again, I say potential because this is still very much just in the brainstorming phase, but this discussion is happening among a number of important offices that we've been speaking with in the Senate and the House, offices that carry a lot of weight. So there is interest in a bill that would somewhat mirror the CHIPS Act, which of course was intended to bring back production of microchip manufacturing to the United States. It had a number of provisions to bolster that industrial base, produce various facilities that would create these microchips. There's an interest in doing something similar for the shipbuilding industrial base, with a significant investment in our public shipyards, a number of different incentive programs for private and smaller shipyards, emphasis on workforce development, all of these types of things. So this is still being cobbled together. It's still happening kind of behind the scenes. Nobody has stepped forward yet to really say we're going to put forward a SHIPS Act, which is why I say it's still just kind of a potential bill. But we are certainly looking into it. The Navy League is consulting with various relevant offices to see if something like that could be beneficial and could potentially become a reality in the next few years. Now, this would have significant implications for California. Obviously, we want to have that presence in the Pacific. So some of the shipyards and docks that have fallen into disrepair or lack of use in recent years, recent decades, they might come back online. So that's something that we'll have to look into and keep you briefed on. Second thing, workforce development. This is an enormous issue across every sector of the American economy, but it's certainly very, very clear in the shipbuilding industrial base as well. I've also been told, kind of, again, somewhat off the record, so what I'm telling you will just be kind of my opinion. I've been told that in this National Defense Authorization Act, there will be authorized a working group made up of industry, government, and academia at the highest levels to deal with this issue of workforce development for the shipbuilding industrial base. Now, I know what you're thinking. Sometimes when Congress puts together a working group or a committee to study something, or a commission, it might be a way of looking like we're doing something, even if we're not doing something, or a delaying tactic or something like that. I don't think that's the case for this one, because with all the officers I've spoken with, they realize this is a very significant issue, and it's a national security issue. If we cannot produce these vessels, my goodness, what a tremendous vulnerability that is, and that comes down to the workers themselves. So I think that this workforce or this working group will be valuable to Congress and will be able to provide somewhat of a blueprint going forward in terms of that workforce.